Simulation. Introduction. There's a moment, you've almost certainly had it, where the momentum of your own life suddenly goes quiet. You might be in the middle of a conversation, or stuck in traffic, or lying awake at night, and for just a second, the script drops. You look at the set of your life, the roles, the routines, the problems you're supposedly solving, and a quiet, perfectly clear question forms. Is this really it? What is all this actually? It's not a crisis, it's more like a moment of perfect clarity, a glimpse behind the scenery. It feels less like a breakdown and more like your perception briefly recalibrating, tuning itself to a different frequency. That feeling is the starting point. It's the hint that there is something operating just beneath the surface of your everyday awareness, a deeper logic to how your experience is being assembled. Now let's talk about that word, simulation. Let's strip it of any sci-fi gadgetry. Think of it in its pure, functional sense. A flight simulator isn't magic, it's a working model that faithfully follows the rules of aerodynamics and weather. It's a contained reality with consistent, observable laws. What if your lived experience, with all its recurring patterns, its unexpected joys, its stubborn pains, is also governed by a set of consistent, underlying rules? Not rules written by some external programmer, but rules inherent to the nature of consciousness, attention, and meaning. Rules about how your inner world shapes the outer one. For millennia, the world's deepest traditions have pointed to these rules. They called it the Tao, the Dharma, the Logos, the grain of reality itself. They weren't describing superstition, they were mapping the verifiable cause and effect architecture of human experience. They observed that people who understood these rules navigated life with a peculiar kind of grace, resilience, and agency. They weren't lucky, they were literate. And our most common pain, the feeling of being stuck on a treadmill, almost always comes from the same fundamental misunderstanding. We are convinced, utterly, that the primary game is being played out there. We believe the real action is in the external world, in our bank balance, our job title, what others think of us, the relentless news cycle. So we spend our lives like firefighters in a storm, trying to control chaos, rearranging furniture in a house that's on fire. We hand over our sense of agency to circumstances, but what if the real leverage point, the actual control panel, is internal? What if the quality of your life is determined not by what happens, but by the position from which you meet it, the state of your own awareness, the meanings you assign, the emotions you cultivate and release? Shifting your effort from trying to control the world to mastering that inner field is the first and most critical rule. It changes everything. What we're going to explore together are the contours of that inner field. Think of it as a set of observable principles, a framework of 13 rules that describe how this experience is built and how you can navigate it with more intention and less suffering. The first few rules will help you locate the true point of control within yourself. The next set will give you practical, immediate tools for working with that control in your daily life. And the final rules will reveal the deeper, almost poetic logic of how reality itself seems to organize and respond to the state of your own consciousness. And this isn't about adopting a new belief system, it's about seeing more clearly the system you're already in. It's about moving from being a character who thinks they're at the mercy of the plot to remembering you are also always the one who is reading the book. You already sense there's a deeper story. Let's begin to learn its grammar. Rule 1, the board is internal. So if we accept that there is a working model, a set of rules beneath the surface of our days, the first and most urgent question is this: where is the game actually being played? We are conditioned from the very beginning to look for the answer outside of ourselves. The scoreboard of life, we are taught, is external. It's made of tangible things. Your salary, your title, the square footage of your home, the model of your car, the likes on your post, the opinions in someone else's head. We are taught that the events that happen to us, the promotion, the breakup, the traffic jam, the critical comment, are the primary movers. They are the pieces on the board, and our job is to react to them, to capture the good ones and defend against the bad. This is a great and convincing illusion. It feels absolutely real because it is constantly reinforced. The traffic jam does make you late. The harsh word does sting. But here is rule 1, and it is the pivot upon which everything else turns. The true game board is not external, it is internal. It is your own perceptual and emotional field. The traffic jam is an external event, a fact, a cluster of pixels on the screen of your day. Your rage, your impotent frustration, the simmering story you tell yourself about wasted time and incompetent city planning, that is where the game is happening. That is the play. The external event is just the prompt, the context. Your internal response is the game itself. We spend our lives believing we are playing chess with the world, trying to outmaneuver other pieces on a board we cannot control. But the master player understands. The only move that ever matters is the move you make inside. The world will throw its pieces, some pleasant, some painful. You cannot stop that. But your power, your only real sovereignty, lies in your relationship to those pieces. Do you pick them up and let them burn your hands? Do you build a fortress out of them, or a prison? Or do you see them for what they are, context, not content? When you are furious in traffic, you are not playing the game of navigating the city. You are playing the game of being a person consumed by fury. When you are devastated by a rejection, you are not playing the game of career or a relationship. You are playing the game of being a person defined by absence. You have mistaken the scenery for the stage. The return to the present moment, to the quiet awareness behind the reaction, is not a spiritual cliché. It is the most practical, tactical maneuver available. It is the literal act of reclaiming your joystick. It is pausing the automatic script of anger, fear, or despair, and asking the only question that a player in charge would ask. Given this set of circumstances, what is my move? From what place within me will I respond? This is not passivity. It is the opposite. It is choosing your position with intention, rather than having it chosen for you by a fleeting event. The world provides the weather. Your internal state is the climate you live in, and you have a surprising degree of influence over that climate. The board was never the office, the highway, or the conversation. The board has always been you, the quality of your attention, the depth of your breath, the stories you endorse, the silence you can access between stimulus and response. Everything that follows every other rule is built on this foundational shift. Stop playing the game out there. The real one, the one that determines the quality of your entire experience, is happening in here. And you are the only player seated at this table. This understanding leads directly to the next rule, which deals with the most persistent feature of our internal landscape, the experience of pain and what we so often do next. Rule 2. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Now, if the true board is internal, if the game is played in the quiet, reactive space between an event and your conscious response, then we must deal honestly with the most powerful force on that board. It's the one universal player experience, the notification that can't be ignored. Pain, physical pain, emotional pain, the ache of loss, the sting of betrayal, the hollow thud of disappointment. This is not a glitch in the simulation, it's a core feature. It is, in the starkest terms, data. It is the system's most direct form of feedback, a sharp, clear signal, a flashing indicator light on your internal dashboard. It says, "Attention required here. A boundary has been crossed. A value has been threatened. Something is out of alignment." Rule 1 told us where the game is played. Rule 2 gives us the critical instruction for how to handle its primary signal. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Let's be clear about the distinction, because our language often conflates them. Pain is the event. It is the initial, raw, often physical or visceral reaction. It is quick. It is a clean strike, the gut punch of bad news, the scar of a burn, the crushing weight of grief in the first moment of knowing. It is the notification. Suffering is everything that comes after. It is the story you tell about the pain, the meaning you assign to it, the committee you assemble in your mind to debate it. It's the "why me?" the "this is unfair," the "this proves I'm unlovable," the relentless replaying of the moment, the projection of that single point of pain into a future of endless darkness. Suffering is when you take the sharp, clean data point of pain and you build a home for it. You give it a room. You furnish it with memories and fears. You feed it with your attention until it grows from a visitor into a permanent resident. The simulation, this working model of reality, processes these two states very differently. The system is designed to reward the swift processing of pain, to feel it cleanly, acknowledge the data. I am hurt, I am afraid, I have lost, and then from that place of clear seeing, to make your next move. This is what resilience actually is. It's not the absence of pain, it's the refusal to mortgage your present and future to it. It's letting the wave of pain crash through you and finding, to your surprise, that you are still standing on the shore when it recedes. In the logic of the game, this is efficiency. It keeps your internal board clear, your processing power high. You integrate the data and you keep playing. Conversely, the system punishes the cultivation of suffering. When you confuse the pain signal with your identity, when you decide, "I am a victim, I am broken, this pain is who I am now," you introduce a kind of gravity into your field. Everything becomes heavy, slow, and effortful. Your perception narrows. Opportunities become invisible. This is the lag people speak of, the feeling of being stuck in mud, of time stretching out in a dull, grey monotony. You are no longer playing the game, you are building a shrine to a single moment of it and then living in the museum. To feel pain is to be fully alive inside the simulation. It is proof of your sensitivity, your capacity to care, to value, to connect. It means the senses are working. To suffer is to have forgotten, even for a moment, that you are in a simulation, a dynamic, flowing experience where you are the one who gets to decide what any given data point ultimately means for the trajectory of your journey. The master player does not seek out pain, but when it arrives, as it inevitably will, they meet it with a devastatingly simple question. What is this here to show me? What requires my attention? What, if anything, needs to change? They take the data. They feel its full weight. And then they let it pass through. They do not build a monument to it. They understand that pain is a moment in time. Suffering is a lifetime sentence you choose to serve, one day at a time, long after the judge has left the room. This leads us naturally to the next rule, which deals with the most surprising consequence of this internal shift. What happens to your experience of time itself? Rule 3. Time is elastic. Once you begin to shift your play from the external board to the internal one, and once you start to differentiate between the clean signal of pain and the heavy construction of suffering, something strange begins to happen to your most fundamental experience, something that feels at first like a contradiction. you start to notice that time itself is not what you thought it was. We are taught that time is the ultimate constant, the great impartial river. It flows in one direction at one speed for everyone, tick-tock, second by second, hour by hour, year by year. It's the scaffold upon which we hang our plans, our regrets, our anxieties about the future. We race against it, we beg for more of it, we feel it slipping through our fingers. This is the time of the external world, the clock on the wall, the calendar on your phone. It is relentless, linear, and utterly indifferent. But there is another time, the time of the player, the internal time. And this is rule 3. The world's time and the player's time are not the same clock. Internal time is elastic. Have you ever been so absorbed in a moment of creation, or connection, or pure presence, that hours felt like minutes? Conversely, have you ever been trapped in a state of anxiety, dread, or boredom, where a single minute stretched into an agonizing eternity? That is the elasticity. That is your internal clock at work. Your state of consciousness doesn't just change how you feel about time, it literally changes your experience of its passage, and, in a way that the most interesting models of reality suggest, it can change the outcomes that unfold within it. When your internal board is cluttered with suffering, with rumination, resentment, and the heavy stories of why things can't or won't change, you introduce a kind of friction into the system. Your perception narrows to a single, repeating loop. You are, in a very real sense, stuck. You might move through external days and weeks, but internally you are running in place on a treadmill. This is the slow time, or the grinding, lagging time of stagnation. It's why people can feel trapped in the same emotional pattern, the same limiting circumstance for years. They are waiting for the external clock to free them, not realizing they are the ones applying the brakes internally. Now consider the opposite state. When you return to your center, when you process pain cleanly and reside in a state of acceptance, clarity, or even peace, something else happens. The internal friction vanishes. Your awareness opens up. You are no longer fighting the current of reality, but flowing with it. In this state, synchronicities increase. Seemingly random events connect in meaningful ways. Obstacles that look permanent begin to shift or reveal paths around them. What people call miracles or luck often occurs in this space. This is the fast time, the accelerated, fluid time of alignment. It feels like skipping levels because, in a sense, you are. You are no longer spending your energy resisting what is, so your energy becomes available to create what's next. This isn't magic, it's a physics of attention. It's what happens when you stop pouring the fuel of your awareness into the fire of resistance. The universe, this simulation, this dynamic model of cause and effect responds to your internal state of coherence. A peaceful, focused mind is a receiver and a transmitter operating at a higher frequency. It picks up on possibilities and orchestrates outcomes that a chaotic, resistant mind simply cannot perceive or access. So if you want to get there faster, wherever there is for you, the instruction is counterintuitive. It is not to run harder on the external treadmill, it is to become profoundly still inside. Cultivate the internal state you wish to see reflected in your timeline. The master player knows that the fastest way to move through the game is not to frantically push the buttons on the controller, but to first ensure the controller is properly calibrated and the player is calmly, clearly present in the seat. Time, you see, is not just something you have, it's something you are, and something you create by the quality of your presence within it. Rule 4, the 2 levels of will. This elastic quality of time, this direct link between your inner state and the unfolding of your experience, leads us to a critical juncture. It forces a question about the nature of our freedom. If our internal world has such power, to shape the feel and flow of our lives, then what exactly are we free to choose? Are we just reacting to a script, or is there a real authorship happening here? This brings us to Rule 4, and it requires us to look at freedom on two distinct levels. There is a greater will and a lesser will. First, the greater will. This is the most foundational choice, the one that underpins everything else. It is the choice to be here at all, to enter this particular, intense, and vivid experience of being human. No one sentenced you to this. In the deepest sense, before the veil descended, you consented to this. You chose the challenge of this life with all its potential for joy and its certainty of pain. This is not about blame or a simplistic "you chose your parents." It's about reclaiming a fundamental sovereignty. You are not an accident. You are a participant. This perspective by itself changes the texture of existence from one of passive endurance to one of engaged participation. Then there is the lesser will. This is the freedom you exercise every single day, in every single moment. It is not the freedom to choose the events that happen to you. You did not choose the storm that cancelled your flight. You did not choose the market crash. You did not choose the words that someone else will say to you today. The external events, the raw data points, the pixels thrown onto the screen of your life, are often outside your direct control. But the lesser will, your profound and absolute power, is this. You always, always choose the meaning. And this is not a small thing. This is the architectural act. This is where you stop being a bystander to your life and become its builder. An event is neutral until you assign it a meaning. That meaning is the blueprint. Let's say you are laid off from a job. That is the event, the pixel. If you assign it the meaning of catastrophe, failure, the end of my security, you are using that pixel to build a dark, low-ceilinged room. You are constructing a basement of fear. Your world literally becomes smaller, heavier, more confined. If you assign it the meaning of liberation, redirection, a forced opportunity to reevaluate what I truly want, you are using the exact same pixel to lay the foundation for something new. You are starting to frame the walls of a structure with a view. The raw material is identical, the architecture is entirely different. You do not control the weather, but you absolutely control the inner climate from which you observe the storm, and you control the design of the shelter you build in response to it. This is the hack. This is the master player's leverage. They understand that while they can't dictate the cards they're dealt, they have complete authority over how they play the hand. They spend infinitely less energy raging against the deal and infinitely more energy in the skillful, creative, an intentional act of playing. So forget the idea of freedom as the ability to make anything happen. That is an illusion that leads to frustration. True agency, the kind that changes a life, is the freedom to decide what anything means. Your narrative is not found, it is forged. And in that forging, you are not just telling the story of your life, you are constructing the very reality in which you will live. This power of meaning-making, this act of conscious architecture, leads us to a staggering implication about the nature of the work we are doing here. It suggests that what we resolve in this moment doesn't just stay here. Understanding this fluid nature of time and outcome brings us face to face with the next great question. If time is so malleable to our inner state, then what does that say about our freedom? What are we actually choosing? Rule 5. This moment is the convergence point. If our freedom lies in the meaning we assign, and if that act of meaning-making is the very architecture of our lived reality, then we must ask, what is the scope of this construction project? How far does the echo of a single choice truly travel? We tend to view our lives linearly as a single thread spooling from birth to death, a straight road where past causes lead to present effects. We carry our histories like luggage, believing our past is a chain linking directly to our ankles, dictating our stride. But what if that linear model is itself part of the veil? What if the point of power isn't in the long, slow accumulation of karma over lifetimes, but in a far more immediate and potent focal point? This brings us to Rule 5, a rule that challenges the very notion of sequential existence and places an immense, beautiful weight upon the present moment. You did not come to collect past lives, you came to integrate them here. This life is the point of convergence. Let's dismantle a popular fantasy. The idea of the old soul who has lived 100 fascinating lives, a Roman centurion, a Renaissance painter, a Himalayan mystic, can be a seductive distraction. It can become a form of spiritual escapism, a way of placing our essence and our wisdom elsewhere, in a glamorous then rather than in the raw, unvarnished now. We can start to view our current life as merely one more installment in a series, often feeling like a disappointing sequel to a greater past. Rule 5 reframes this entirely. It posits that all those other experiences, those other facets of consciousness, whether you conceive of them as literal past lives, archetypal energies, or unexpressed potentials within your own psyche, are not trophies on a distant shelf. They are not finished chapters in a book you're no longer reading. They are, instead, all present. They are simultaneous aspects of a vast and multifaceted consciousness that you are, and this life, this body, this set of circumstances you find yourself in, this is the designated integration point. This is the nexus. This is where the threads are meant to be drawn together, not in some misty afterlife, but in the palpable reality of your breath, your relationships, your fears, and your breakthroughs today. Think of it not as a timeline, but as a star. At the center is the blazing, focused point of your present awareness. The eye that is reading these words, feeling the chair beneath you, aware of your own breath. Radiating out from that center are countless rays, lines of potential and memory, different versions of experience, other ways this consciousness has expressed itself or could express itself. They are all connected to the center. They are all feeding into it, and it is feeding into them. When you, in this moment, finally forgive a deep-seated resentment, not as an intellectual exercise, but in a gut-level release that washes through your body, you are not just healing a wound from your childhood in this life. According to this rule, you are performing surgery on a core pattern of holding. That act of forgiveness sends a shockwave of resolution back along all those lines where that pattern of resentment has played out. You are, in a very real sense, liberating not just present you, but every version of you that has ever been entangled in that particular knot of pain. When you face a primal fear of abandonment, of failure, of not being enough, and you walk through it, choosing courage, not because you are fearless, but because your commitment to growth is greater than the fear, you are not just leveling up in this game, you are collapsing a fundamental limitation across the entire field of your being. Every potential self that would have been constrained by that fear receives a measure of liberation. This is why life can feel so incredibly dense, so electrically significant. It's not just that you're paying a bill or having an argument or starting a new job. It's that in this focused, high-resolution point of convergence, you are doing the work of integration for the entire constellation of your consciousness. The stakes feel cosmic because, in a way, they are. You are not playing a practice round in a minor league. You are on the field for the championship game, and every play matters with a multiplied intensity. This perspective transforms how we view our history and our purpose. The past is not healed by endlessly digging in the past. That can often just be a form of rumination dressed as therapy. The past, all of it, in every dimension you can conceive, is healed by making a different, more conscious, more loving choice right now. When you resolve a conflict in your present awareness, you send the code of that resolution backward and forward along the threads of time, updating the software everywhere it was running. It means you don't have to go searching for answers in past life regressions or ancient scrolls, though those may provide clues. The ultimate answers, the profound healings, are available in the raw material of your current existence. The irritation with your partner is the gateway to integrating ancient patterns of power and surrender. The anxiety about money is the portal to healing lineages of scarcity and fear. The joy you feel in simple creation is the key to unlocking lifetimes of suppressed genius. You are here to synthesize, to bring the fragments into a whole. This moment, with all its mundane beauty and its acute challenges, is the alembic, the crucible, where the distillation of your entire journey is meant to occur. All of your yous, from all the stories and timelines, are watching this playthrough. They are invested in your choices, because your choices are their liberation. What you resolve here in the focused light of now resonates everywhere. You are, in the most profound sense, doing the work for all of them. So when you feel the weight of a decision, when a moment of truth arrives that seems to hold an almost unbearable significance, recognize it for what it is. It is convergence. It is the universe offering you a point of leverage so powerful that by moving it, you can move worlds within yourself. You are not just living a life, you are conducting a symphony of selves, and the present moment is your baton. This understanding of our profound interconnectedness with all aspects of our own being inevitably casts a new and revealing light on the other people who share our stage. If we are integrating multitudes within ourselves, what role do they play? This brings us to a rule that is perhaps the most direct and ego-shattering mirror we will ever face. Rule 6. Reality is a holographic mirror. This idea of convergence, of being the focal point where all threads of our consciousness meet, brings a radical new lens to bear on our most common, daily source of conflict and confusion: other people. If our inner work has such far-reaching implications, then what is the function of the other characters in our story? Are they merely background extras, or do they have a more active, more intimate role in our journey? This leads us to Rule 6, a principle that is intellectually elegant and emotionally confronting. It is the rule that, when genuinely understood, dismantles blame and transforms every relationship into a tool for liberation. It states, reality is a holographic mirror. Everything that triggers you in another is a reflection of something within you. Let's be precise. This is not a call for self-blame when someone treats you poorly. It is not saying, if you are abused, you attracted it. That is a dangerous and simplistic distortion. This rule operates on the level of perception and emotional resonance, not on the level of justifying immoral actions. Here is the mechanism. The simulation, this working model of consciousness, is efficient. It does not waste resources creating independent, fully autonomous enemies whose sole purpose is to torment you. Instead, it uses the rich, complex field of other people as a dynamic screen. Onto that screen, it projects the unresolved fragments of your own being. What the great psychologist Carl Jung called your shadow. Your shadow is not bad. It is simply the collection of traits, impulses, potentials and wounds that your conscious identity, your ego, your idea of who I am, has rejected, repressed, or disowned. Because you refuse to acknowledge them in yourself, you are hypersensitive to spotting them in others. The world becomes a mirror, showing you what you cannot bear to see in the mirror of self. If you are perpetually irritated by someone's arrogance, it is worth asking, where in your life are you not allowing yourself to be seen, to take up space, to own your rightful confidence? Or conversely, where are you secretly harboring a sense of superiority you'd never admit? The other person's arrogance is the hook. The conflict within you between suppressed power and latent pride is the catch. If you are deeply wounded by someone's emotional unavailability, it is a stark signal. Where have you walled off your own heart? Where are you unavailable to yourself, refusing to sit with your own pain or offer yourself the deep nurturing you crave from another? Their coldness mirrors your own internal abandonment. Even admiration is a reflection. The qualities you idolize in a mentor, a leader, or an artist, their creativity, their peace, their discipline, are dormant potentials within you calling for recognition and integration. We only see in others what we have the capacity to recognize within our own spectrum of possibility. This is why judgment is a confession. Every time you point a finger in blame or critique, you are unconsciously revealing your own inner blueprint. You are saying, this is a program I recognize because it runs, in some form, in me. The person who judges the thief is often terrified of their own unmet desires. The person who scorns the showman is often stifling their own need for expression. The ego's instinct when faced with an unpleasant reflection is to smash the mirror, to argue, to vilify, to prove the other wrong, to make the reflection go away. This is an exhausting, endless game, like trying to wipe a smudge off your face by polishing the glass. The player's move is different. They turn away from the mirror and look inward. They ask with ruthless curiosity, what is this reaction showing me about myself? What disowned part of me is being activated? What fear, what desire, what unintegrated power is this person mirroring back? This is not about condoning bad behavior. It is about reclaiming immense power. When you do this work, when you find that pocket of insecurity within that is mirrored by another's criticism, and you heal it with self-acceptance, a remarkable thing happens. The external reflection must change. The other person may suddenly shift their behavior, or they may simply fade from your central stage, becoming irrelevant to your emotional world. The charge is gone because the inner circuit has been completed. The other person was never the problem. They were the perfectly cast actor, showing you the script you needed to see. Thank them internally for their service. Then do the real work. Clean the lens of your own perception. In a hologram, every fragment contains the image of the whole. Heal the fragment within you, and the whole of your reality rearranges itself around that healing. This path of introspection, of using the world as a mirror, brings us to the most seductive and perilous trap on the playing field. The temptation to see ourselves not as players, but as permanent victims of the reflection. Rule 7. Victimhood is the ultimate trap. Armed with the understanding that the world reflects our inner state, that every judgment is a confession and every trigger a map to a disowned part of ourselves, we now face the most seductive and paralyzing trap on the entire board. It is the psychological cul-de-sac where personal power goes to die, dressed in the convincing robes of righteousness and injury. This is the territory of Rule 7, and it offers no comfort to the ego, only a stark path back to agency. Being a victim does not grant nobility. It surrenders your joystick. Let's be clear. To have been victimized is a terrible reality. To have suffered genuine harm, injustice, betrayal, or abuse at the hands of another or by circumstance is a profound human pain. This rule does not deny that reality. It does not minimize true trauma. What it addresses is the state of victimhood, the constructed identity that emerges after the event and chooses to make a permanent home there. There is a world of difference between saying, "This was done to me," and deciding, "Therefore I am defined by what was done to me." The first is a statement of fact. The second is a surrender of authorship. It is the moment you hand the narrative of your life over to the perpetrator, the system, the past, or fate, and appoint them as the permanent editor of your story. When you reside in victimhood, you are playing in spectator mode. You are watching a movie of your own life, where you are the central target of a hostile plot. Your energy is spent in a continuous loop of evidence gathering, cataloguing faults, rehearsing grievances, building a legal case against the universe for its unfairness, the government, your ex-partner, your parents, your boss, the economy. These become the starring antagonists in your drama. And while your focus is locked on them, a crucial transaction occurs. You trade your power for pity, your agency for sympathy, your future for the grim comfort of a justified past. The game, this simulation of cause and effect, processes this state as a fundamental refusal to play. It reads your sustained focus on the who and why of your injury as a command. Do not change. Keep this story intact. And so it obliges. It provides more evidence, more circumstances, more characters who will play the role of oppressor, reinforcing the walls of the prison you have agreed to inhabit. The lag here is profound. It is the soul-crushing feeling of stagnation, of being eternally stuck on the same painful page. The master player recognizes the trap. They understand that to forgive is not to condone, and to take responsibility is not to accept blame. The pivot point, the move that reclaims the joystick, is a simple, internal declaration. I generated this reality consciously or unconsciously, and I have the power to transform it. This statement is atomic in its power. It bypasses the futile courtroom of who's to blame and moves directly to the control room of what happens next. It shifts the question from why did they do this to me to what is this showing me? What belief did I hold that made this experience possible? And what do I choose to build from the rubble? This is not about self-flagellation. It is about sovereignty. It is the recognition that even within a reality you did not consciously choose, you retained the ultimate power, the power of response, the power of meaning-making, the power to take the shattered pieces and decide whether you will build a monument to your pain or a new foundation for your freedom. When you stop blaming the reflection in the mirror and start asking why you keep seeing that particular reflection, you cease to be a spectator. You become the director, the scenographer, the writer. You may not have cast the initial actors or written the first act, but you have just walked into the production booth and seized control of the lights, the sound, and the entire trajectory of the remaining play. The victim believes their power was taken. The player knows their power was only ever misplaced, and that it can be reclaimed in the very next breath, with the very next thought. The game does not reward the one with the most justified grievance. It rewards the one who, regardless of the grievance, chooses to play on. Having reclaimed the joystick from the trap of victimhood, we are left with a new question. How do we actually wield this reclaimed power in the chaotic, unpredictable flow of daily life? This requires not just philosophy, but a specific, grounded kind of trust. Rule 8. Operative faith. Having stepped out of the spectator's seat of victimhood and reclaimed the joystick of agency, we are faced with the most practical of questions. Now what? How do you actually operate this thing? How do you move through a world that still feels chaotic, through days that are still filled with uncertainty, without falling back into reaction, fear, or the old story? This is the moment theory meets the road. This is where we need a specific, actionable kind of trust. Not a blind leap, but a conscious step onto ground you know will hold. This brings us to Rule 8, the engine of applied sovereignty. What you need is operative faith. Let us immediately distinguish this from what faith is often mistaken for. This is not religious dogma. It is not the hope that a distant, personified deity will intervene if you pray hard enough. It is not a passive, wishful optimism that things will work out. Operative faith is something far more robust, far more grounded. It is the certainty of the engineer. Picture an engineer standing before a bridge she has designed. She has not hoped the bridge will hold. She has not wished the physics of tension and compression into cooperation. She has studied the principles, she has calculated the loads, she has tested the materials. Her certainty is not a feeling, it is a knowledge built on the demonstrable, repeatable rules of her reality. When she walks onto that bridge, her step is not a gamble, it is the logical conclusion of her understanding. Operative faith is your bridge. It is the certainty, born of direct experience and observed principle, that the simulation, this working model of consciousness and reality, has consistent, intelligible rules. Rule 1 showed you the board is internal. Rule 2 showed you pain is data. Rule 3 showed you time is elastic to your state. You have seen the principles in action, even in fleeting glimpses. Operative faith is the decision to act as if these rules are reliably true, even before you have the full, final proof in your external circumstances. This is the critical shift, from hoping the game will be fair to knowing the game has rules and learning to play by them. The player with operative faith does not beg the universe for a break. They understand the universe operates on principles of cause and effect, attention and manifestation, inner state and outer reflection. They focus on aligning their own cause, their thoughts, their emotional state, their actions with the effect they wish to see. This faith is not proclaimed. It is practiced in the infinitesimal. It is not found on a mountaintop, but forged in the mundane. It is evident in the care with which you make your bed, imposing order on a small domain. It is in the breath you take, that conscious reset of the nervous system, before replying to a provoking email. It is in the integrity of a no spoken cleanly, without apology, guarding the sanctity of your time and energy. It is in the yes given fully, without hidden resentment. It is in doing the small, right thing for its own sake, trusting that this is how the muscle of integrity is built. This is how you hack the matrix, not with dramatic gestures, but with micro-corrections in alignment. Each of these tiny acts is a command line input. It is you stating to the system, I am conscious, I am here, I am choosing coherence. And the system, governed by its rules, begins to respond to that coherent signal. Without this operative faith, all the previous rules remain mere philosophy. You may know the board is internal, but if you don't have faith that working on that internal board will change the external game, you'll never truly shift your focus. You'll peek inside, see the chaos, and immediately look back outside for salvation. Operative faith is the grit that keeps you doing the internal work when the external results are not yet visible. It is the quiet knowing that if you maintain your internal equilibrium, if you choose peace over panic, clarity over confusion, love over fear, the game, by its own design, must reorganize around that stable center. It is the trust that the bridge of your own conscious being built on these principles will hold the weight of your crossing. You are not waiting for a sign. You are becoming the certainty upon which your future is being built, one deliberate, faithful breath at a time. This faith provides the why, the reason to stay at the controls, but it doesn't give us the how, the daily manual for operating the avatar we inhabit. For that, we need protocols, not grand theories, but simple, repeatable actions that maintain the instrument of our play. Rule 9. Practical protocols for avatar maintenance. With operative faith as our foundation, that quiet engineering certainty in the rules of the game, we turn to the most immediate question. What do you actually do? How do you translate this inner knowing into the grit and grain of a Tuesday? How do you maintain the instrument through which you experience all of this body, this mind, this avatar? This is not about grand gestures or dramatic overhauls. The most profound shifts in the simulation are not triggered by singular, explosive events, but by the subtle, consistent pressure of daily practice. This is the territory of Rule 9, the rule that grounds everything in the here and now. You need practical protocols. This is avatar maintenance. Think of your conscious self as the player and your physical, emotional, and mental being as the avatar, the intricate vehicle through which you navigate this dense reality. A master driver does not curse a poorly tuned engine. They maintain it. They understand that performance is dependent on the condition of the machine. Your clarity, your resilience, your capacity for joy and creativity, all of it is hardware dependent. You cannot run advanced software on corrupted or fatigued systems. Protocols are not punishments. They are not austere rules designed to shrink your life. They are the loving, disciplined maintenance schedule for the most complex instrument you will ever operate, yourself. They are how you keep the joystick responsive, the screen clear, and the connection strong. Let's begin with the most fundamental, the one you are doing right now and can control in an instant. Breathing. This is not a mystical exercise. It is the literal physiological reset button for your entire nervous system. A long, slow exhale activates the parasympathetic response, the body's rest and digest signal, dousing the stress chemicals of fight or flight. When you are triggered, lost in future anxiety or past regret, your breath becomes shallow, jagged. To take 3 conscious, deep breaths is not avoidance. It is the first tactical move. It is you rebooting the operating system before you choose your next input. It returns you to the player's seat. Next, language. The words you use internally and externally are not just descriptions, they are commands. They shape perception. The most critical language shift is moving from the question of the victim to the question of the learner. When something difficult happens, the automatic script asks, "Why is this happening to me?" This question, however natural, assumes passivity and punishment. It looks for a culprit outside yourself. The protocol is to consciously reframe it. What is this happening for me? What is here to be learned, integrated, or released? This simple pivot transforms you from a target of circumstance into a student of reality. It activates your agency in the search for meaning. Then, avatar hygiene. This is the non-negotiable maintenance of the physical vessel. It is brutally simple and often ignored. Water, sleep, movement, nourishment, less screen time. You are a biological entity operating in a high-stimulus world. Dehydration causes brain fog. Sleep deprivation destroys emotional regulation and clear thinking. A sedentary body creates a sluggish mind. Processed food creates inflammation that clouds mental and emotional states. And the endless, frantic scroll through curated digital realities frays your attention and dysregulates your nervous system. This is not wellness dogma, it is systems engineering. You cannot discern subtle intuitive signals if you are chronically dehydrated, exhausted, and overstimulated. The game will feel harder because you are playing with a broken controller. Finally, the decision filter. At every crossroad, from what to eat for lunch to whether to leave a job, institute a single, clarifying protocol. Pause and ask, am I making this choice from a place of love, or from a place of fear? Is this career move fueled by passion and expansion, love, or by anxiety over status and security, fear? Is this yes to a social obligation coming from genuine connection, love, or from fear of missing out or being judged, fear? Is this purchase an act of genuine appreciation, love, or an attempt to fill an inner void, fear? If the answer is fear, the protocol is clear: do not move. This does not mean the fearful path is always wrong. It means you are not yet choosing from your center. Wait, breathe, inquire further. Seek the angle of love which is not always soft, but can be the fierce love of your own boundaries, the loving truth of a difficult conversation, the love of a greater vision that requires current discomfort. Move only when you can connect to that core frequency. This filter alone will prevent a lifetime of energy leaks and dead-end paths. These protocols, breath, language, hygiene, and the decision filter are the daily drills. They are unglamorous, they are repetitive, and they are utterly transformative. They are how you, brick by brick, breath by breath, build the stable inner platform from which you can truly see the game and play it with intention, clarity, and power. This disciplined maintenance of the self, however, leads to a paradox. We pursue freedom, yet we are talking about limits. We seek expansion, yet we are practicing restriction. This apparent contradiction holds one of the simulation's most elegant and misunderstood secrets. Rule 10. Freedom requires a vessel. After establishing the daily protocols, the breath, the language, the hygiene, we arrive at a seeming contradiction. We speak of freedom, of sovereignty, of expanding consciousness. Yet here we are discussing discipline, limits, and the word no. Is this not a step backward? Is freedom not the absence of restriction? This is one of the simulation's most elegant and misunderstood principles. True power is not found in boundless dissipation, but in conscious containment. This brings us to Rule 10, a rule that reframes the very architecture of creation. Freedom requires a vessel. Light is infinite, but it needs a container. Imagine light, pure, formless, radiant energy. It is everywhere and nowhere. It is potential itself. Now imagine trying to drink it, to hold it, to use it to write a letter, build a home, or heal a body. You cannot. Its very boundlessness makes it useless for specific tasks in a dense material reality. For light to become actionable, to become a laser that can cut steel, a lamp that can illuminate a page, a signal that can carry information, it must be directed. It must be channeled. It must pass through a structure that limits it in order to empower it. A lens, a fiber optic cable, a lampshade. These are constraints that transform diffuse potential into focused power. You are that light. Your consciousness, your energy, your life force, it is infinite in source. But to manifest in this world as health, as wealth, as love, as creative expression, as impact, it requires a vessel, a U-shaped container, and a container, by its very definition, has walls. It has limits. This is the great paradox the master player understands. Without restriction, there is no reception. If you place no conscious limits on your consumption of food, of information, of entertainment, the system itself will impose a limit for you. It is called illness, it is called burnout, it is called addiction, a forced limit born of crisis. If you place no conscious limits on your spending on money, time, or emotional energy, the system will impose a limit. It is called debt. It is called exhaustion. It is called resentment. Again, a forced limit delivered through pain. The novice player experiences these forced limits as punishments from an unfair universe. The master player sees them as the simulation's basic physics. Energy that is not consciously contained will spill, dissipate, or eventually collapse in a way that creates a boundary through damage. Therefore, the player's move is to become the architect of their own container, to voluntarily choose the walls. This is the sacred meaning of discipline. It is not self-punishment, it is self-sculpting. When you say no to the third drink, you are not depriving yourself. You are strengthening the wall of your physical vessel so it can hold more vitality. When you say no to a distracting obligation, you are fortifying the wall of your time vessel so it can hold deeper focus and creativity. When you create a budget, you are not limiting your abundance. You are forming the financial vessel that can accumulate and channel wealth without leaking. Every no to a diffuse impulse is a yes to the integrity of your form. You are defining your shape. And it is only when you have a strong, defined shape, a vessel with sound walls, that the universe can fill you with blessing without causing you to shatter. You cannot pour a waterfall into a paper cup, but you can pour it into a well-built cistern, and it will become a sustained resource. The discipline, the restriction, the daily no. These are the acts of love that build the container capable of holding the very freedom you seek. You are not building a prison, you are building a cathedral. This act of self-creation, of building a conscious vessel, leads us to the most liberating rule of all, for if we are the builders, then we must also be the editors. What do we do with the old, flawed, or painful structures we have already built? The simulation has a function for that too. It is not forgiveness, as the world thinks of it. It is something far more technical and far more powerful. Rule 11. You can rewrite your code, Teshuvah. Building a conscious vessel through discipline implies a forward motion, a construction. But what of the past? What of the old architecture? The mistakes cemented into our history, the guilt mortared into our foundations, the versions of ourselves we wish we could disown. Do we carry these as permanent loads, paying off a karmic debt in installments of shame across a lifetime? This is the territory of the most hopeful rule in the entire manual. It is a rule that speaks directly to the core of the simulation's design, revealing it not as a punitive court, but as a dynamic learning system with a reset function. This is Rule 11. The system allows a total rewrite of the code. It is called clearing the cache. We must first identify the most costly error, the virus that corrupts this process: guilt. Not the fleeting, healthy remorse that corrects a course, but the sustained toxic state of guilt. This is not a moral judgment, it is a technical one. Guilt, in its persistent form, is a program error. It is the command that forces your consciousness to remain identified with a version of yourself that no longer exists. It traps your active, present I in a feedback loop with a past action, creating a phantom limb of pain that you are compelled to nurse forever. It is the ultimate lag, anchoring you to a timeline that has already passed. Many spiritual and religious systems have recognized this problem and offered a solution. In religion, it is often called forgiveness, a divine pardon that wipes the slate. In the mechanics of this simulation, we can understand it by its function: clearing the cache. Your browser stores cache, temporary data from old web pages, to load them faster in the future, but when that cached data becomes corrupted or outdated, it slows everything down, causing errors and displaying old information. To fix it, you don't repair each corrupted file. You clear the entire cache. The system dumps the old, useless data and starts fresh, pulling new, current information. Your consciousness has a similar function. The ancient wisdom of Kabbalah calls it teshuvah, often translated as repentance. Its literal meaning is far more precise and powerful: return. It does not mean to grovel for a pardon from an external judge. It means to return to your source code, to your original, uncontaminated state of alignment. Here is the operational truth of Rule 11. If in this present moment you have a genuine realization of your error, not just an intellectual understanding, but a heartfelt knowing that shifts your very being, and you commit to a new attitude and action from that new place. The system accepts that as a definitive update. It reads the signal. The player who committed that error has ceased to exist. A new player with updated consciousness is now at the controls, and it clears the cache. The karmic feedback loop tied to that old action is deactivated. The historical record, in terms of its energetic charge over your present, is deleted. You are not your past. You are the awareness observing your past. When you change at the level of consciousness, not just behavior, but the fundamental awareness from which behavior springs, you have, in the most real sense, become a different entity. The universe does not punish the new you for the old you's bugs. It waits, patient and neutral, for you to finish updating. This is the grace woven into the system's logic. You do not have to serve an eternal sentence for a crime committed by a ghost. You can respawn, now, in this breath. The only one continuing to punish the new you is the old you's lingering ghost, sustained by your own belief in its permanence. Let go of the ghost. Clear the cache. Hit the button marked Teshuvah, Return. The system is waiting for your update, not your penance. This power to rewrite our code from the present moment leads to the ultimate creative principle in the simulation. If we are not bound by the past, then what determines the future? It is not a desire. It is something far more fundamental and far more demanding. Rule 12. The matrix obeys certainty, not desire. The power to clear the cache, to respawn in the present, grants us a breathtaking freedom. We are not defined by what was. So then, what defines what will be? If the future is a field of pure potential, what is the force that cultivates it into the specific harvest of our experience? This brings us to the threshold of creation itself, to Rule 12. This rule separates the wishful thinker from the conscious architect. It is the principle that governs the physics of manifestation within the simulation. The matrix does not respond to your desires. It obeys your certainty. Let us dissect this carefully, for it is commonly and catastrophically misunderstood. We are taught to ask the universe for what we want. We make vision boards, we recite affirmations, we send our wishes out like prayers. But inherent in the act of asking is a silent, powerful confession. I do not have this. It is a statement of lack. It is a broadcast from a state of yearning, of absence. And the simulation, this flawless mirror of consciousness, has one primary function: to reflect back to you the state you are in. If your dominant broadcast is, I lack this, the mirror has no choice but to show you more lack, more reasons why you don't have it, more distance between you and your desire. You are asking for water while loudly declaring yourself to be in a desert. The master player understands this. They do not ask, they decree. This is not arrogance, it is not a delusion, it is certainty. In the ancient tradition of Kabbalah, this is called emunah, often translated as faith, but better understood as certainty, knowing. It is the state of the engineer walking onto her bridge. It is the state of a singer who knows the note is within her before she opens her mouth. It is acting, speaking, and feeling from the reality of the outcome, as if it is already an established fact, long before the external evidence arrives. This is the creative faculty of the simulation. It organizes pixels, events, opportunities, people, resources around the strongest, clearest, most coherent signal it receives. Doubt is static. Desire is a weak, choppy signal laced with the noise of I don't have. But certainty is a pure, laser-focused broadcast. It is a command. Your greatest enemy in this endeavor has a name. In the Kabbalistic tradition, it is Amalek. It is the force of doubt, not intellectual questioning, but the soul-level vibration of maybe, but probably not. Doubt is not skepticism. It is a virus. It is the split in your own signal. It says, I want this, but I'm not sure I deserve it. I believe it's possible, but I'm afraid it won't happen for me. The server of reality receives this garbled transmission and responds in kind, confusion, mixed results, near misses, and chaotic delays. It cannot execute a command that contradicts itself. When you operate from certainty, you perform a profound act of coercion on reality itself. Even when every external pixel screams otherwise, when the bank account is low, when the diagnosis is grim, when all doors seem shut, you hold the inner frequency of the truth you have decreed. You do not deny the external facts, you simply hold a deeper fact as more real. You pay your bills not from a panic of scarcity, but from the calm knowing of a provider. You face the illness not as a victim, but as a being on a journey of healing. You speak and act as if your desired reality is the baseline truth of your existence, and the simulation, governed by its immutable law, must eventually rearrange the pixels of your external world to match the clarity and strength of your internal broadcast. It has no choice. You are not believing what you see. You are forcing reality to show you what you believe. This is the ultimate creative responsibility. You are not a beggar at the universe's door. You are a broadcaster transmitting the frequency of your future on the channel of your present certainty. Tune out the static of doubt. Silence the whisper of Amalek, and transmit with the full power of your being from the finished story of your triumph. The mirror has no option but to reflect it back. This journey, from reclaiming the internal board to processing pain, to bending time, to wielding certainty, culminates in one final, quiet realization. If we can command reality from a place of inner knowing, then what, in the end, are we actually here to win? Rule 13. Winning is remembering. We have walked the entire path, from the first glitch in consensus to the architecture of meaning, from the mirror of others to the sovereignty of self, from the discipline of the vessel to the command of certainty. We have the rulebook. We know the physics. We hold the joystick. This leads us to the final quiet question that has been whispering beneath all the others. What is the win condition? If you can master the protocols, if you can decree your reality with certainty, if you can build a vessel for infinite light, what is the trophy? Is it wealth? Is it fame? Is it perfect health or endless love or legacy? No, the ultimate prize is not something you acquire. It is something you remember. This is Rule 13, the rule that contains and completes all others. Winning is remembering who you are. You are not the avatar. You are not the list of accomplishments or failures in its biography. You are not the anxiety in its chest, the pride in its posture, or the story in its mind. You are the player, the immortal, conscious awareness that put on this costume of flesh and bone, this role with a name and a history for the experience. The drama is not your life. It is the game you logged into. The pain is not your destruction. It is the resistance of the controller. The joy is not a fleeting reward. It is the taste of the game played well. Winning is not a future event. It is a present tense recognition. It is the moment, in the heat of an argument, in the grip of a loss, in the stillness of an ordinary Tuesday, when you suddenly feel the separation, when you feel the you that is aware of the anger, aware of the grief, aware of the boredom, That aware space is the player's seat. To inhabit it consciously is to win. When you can stand in the burning building of your circumstantial life, feel the heat of the flames, and yet, in the core of your being, silently know, I am the one who chose this level of the game, you have won. The matrix, the convincing illusion of a solid, external, punishing reality, loses all power over you in that instant. It cannot threaten an immortal with death, it cannot tempt a sovereign with trinkets, it cannot frighten a conscious player with a scripted monster. The peace that follows this remembering is not the peace of inactivity or resignation, it is the peace of context. It is the deep, unshakable calm of an actor who knows they are on a stage and can therefore pour their entire soul into the performance without fear, because they know the curtain call is not the end. They are free to experience the role with absolute passion and absolute detachment simultaneously. This is the liberation. You are not here to fix the character until it is perfect. You are here to experience being the character while knowing you are so much more. The goal is to play so fully, so passionately, and so compassionately that you pierce the veil from the inside, not by escaping the game, but by perceiving its edges while still joyfully playing within them. You have the rules now. You can feel the weight of the joystick in your hand. The game has already detected your elevated permissions. It will respond. Challenges will arise not as punishments, but as invitations to level up. Synchronicities will flow not as rewards, but as confirmations of your aligned signal. Do not be afraid of this. It is a simulation recognizing an administrator. Your only task from this point forward is the practice of remembrance. In the traffic jam, remember. In the hospital room, remember. In the boardroom, in the bedroom, in the mirror, remember. Whisper it until it becomes the bedrock of your being. I am playing. Welcome home, player. The game has always been waiting for you to realize you cannot lose. Conclusion. Your new playthrough. The manual is complete. The rules are not just concepts now, they are a lens, a toolkit, an operating system now active in your awareness. From this moment, the quality of the game will change. You will notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that feel like winks from the universe. You will face challenges that feel less like random attacks and more like precise, almost elegant tests of your new understanding. You will experience moments of piercing clarity where the underlying architecture of a situation becomes visible. Do not mistake this for strangeness and do not fear it. This is the system's confirmation. It is the simulation detecting a new permission level, authenticating a user who has remembered their access codes. It is recognizing an administrator. This is not the end. It is the start of your conscious playthrough. Final call. Your only task is integration. To weave this knowing into the fabric of your days. This happens not through a single grand gesture, but through the quiet, repeated affirmation, in your actions and in your silent thoughts. When you choose breath over reaction, affirm it, I am playing. When you assign new meaning to an old pain, affirm it, I am playing. When you set a boundary with love or move with certainty into the unknown, affirm it, I am playing. Let this be your mantra, your anchor, your secret password. Back to the player's seat whenever the drama threatens to consume you. You are not a victim of the story. You are the one experiencing it. You chose the density, you chose the veil, and now you have chosen to remember the rules. The game has been waiting for you. Now play